I'm going to do a quick video today to show you how I lubricate my AK rifle. So what I have here is a Hungarian AK-63D. This is the stamped receiver underfolder model. And I'm just going to do a real quick field strip and show you how I clean mine. So chamber and magazine are empty. I'm going to press this button on the back to release the tension on the top cover. Remove that and set it aside. Just grab the rear of your spring assembly here, your recoil guide rod, push forward a little bit, up and out. I'm going to set that aside for now. Now I'm just going to grab onto the bolt carrier assembly, pull it to the rear, remove that. And you'll notice in the rear there's a relief in the guide rails where you can actually get it out, where it's nice and wide. So make sure it's all the way to the rear and just pull back and up at the same time, and this will pop out. So now that you've got this assembly, here's your carrier assembly. Underneath here is the bolt. We're just going to take this and let it cam down like it naturally does. Turn it about a quarter of a turn. Then the bolt will come free from the carrier. So there's just a couple surfaces in here where you make contact. This groove here. And then we have a couple sets of rails where we make contact. Here. And there's also some contact under here, as you can see. So we're basically just looking to lightly lubricate the contact points. We don't want to just sit there and pour a bunch of, CLP or lube on there where it's just soaking wet. That's kind of overkill. To be honest with the AK, it doesn't matter. You could just take this and probably just dunk it in a bucket of oil and it'd still be fine. But no need to waste your lube. So we're just going to come here and I'm going to take where this little groove is right here. I'm just going to put 1 drop of oil in there. Then I'm going to come around to the other side, put 1 drop of oil here. And then I just like to take just a teeny bit here. Just kind of smooth it across. Again, it's not dripping wet, just where it looks nice and shiny. And then I'm going to come on these angles and just kind of dress it off to the side. So that's all I do with that. And then sometimes you don't have to do this, but I'll just put 1 drop right here and just kind of smear that around in there. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to lubricate this portion because there's a lot of hot combustion gas in here and it's probably not going to be a problem, but in theory, if you lubricate this piston itself, it could give the carbon something to cling on to and you could get excessive carbon buildup in there. So I would not lubricate any of this. If you want to, on some rifles you'll see a shiny spot here. You could just put like a drop right here and just kind of rub that around there. That's not going to really hurt anything, as long as you just stay away from lubricating this piston. So we're going to set this aside. And then we're going to go to our actual bolt. Now there's a couple spots on the bolt that are going to make contact. First of all, the stem is going to ride in the circle portion of the carrier. So I'm just going to lightly put a little bit on here. 1 drop there. Just take my fingertip, spread it around. This does not have to be soaking wet. I literally just used 1 drop to lubricate that whole portion. Then I'm going to come under here where the lugs make contact. Just put a drop here and here. I always like to kind of take the oil and just kind of smooth it out when I'm done. You don't have to do that. The rifle will take care of that. And then I'm going to come around to this angled surface here. Right here, and I'm just going to put 1 drop here. And then just a little bit. You might still have some left on your fingertip. If not, you're just basically getting all these contact points on the bolt. No reason to put any lube on the bolt face, but if a teeny bit gets on there accidentally, that's not a big deal either. That's going to burn off after the first or second shot anyways. So yeah, that's about it. This, you just line it back up with the hole. If it doesn't want to go in all the way, like right here, that means you're not properly rotated. So just simply rotate the bolt, push it in, and then you're just going to rotate again, So you feel it lock up in the groove. Now it's going to freely travel up and down. But when you assemble, you want to use gravity as your friend. Just keep a downward angle. What that's going to do is make it where the bolt doesn't want to automatically ride down like it just did. Just let it ride forward. I'm putting my rifle at a downward angle just to help. I'm guiding the gas piston in through the rear sight block into the gas tube. I'm just going to line up those two rear ears into that bigger opening in the back of the receiver. Push down a little bit. You're going to feel pressure of the bolt hitting the hammer. Push down and forward. And that's going to go all the way forward, just like that. The other part that I do once in a while, and then this only has to be done very rarely, this portion also reciprocates back and forth in the rear of the carrier. Sometimes I'll just take and put a little bit of oil on my finger and thumb here. Just get it nice and oily. Just kind of go like this a few times on the spring. Just a little bit. Just kind of wipe it around a little bit. That's going to just work itself around anyways. So again, I found this definitely does not have to be done necessarily every time, but every once in a while it's good to put a little bit of light oil on here just to keep everything moving freely. It'll also make it, a little bit quieter when you're, cycling it by hand. So we're just going to push this into the rear of the carrier. Push forward. You'll notice there's little grooves in the back. Just push forward enough to get in front of the grooves, drop it in, and let it go to the back. Just function test real quick. Make sure that your bolt's moving properly. You'll know if it is or isn't, because if you didn't install your bolt right, you probably wouldn't have even been able to get the carrier to fit. And if you somehow did, you'd notice something. So you'll just know if it's working. In this case, everything's moving freely, no problem. This gun was bone dry, by the way. So there's this little bit of lube. You can see how it's transferred. You can see the little shiny spots on the upper rail there. It's transferred the lube to where it was making contact. And that's why I don't just sit there and slather the whole rails with oil. Reason being, you're not going to make contact with the whole rail during the entire stroke of the piston and the carrier. So just put the oil on the actual moving part and it'll find its way to where it needs to on the rails. You can kind of see some shiny spots and dry spots. That's because the carrier is not actually touching the top rail the whole entire motion of travel. Then of course your top cover. The best tip I can give you here, a lot of people just throw this on like this and try to push it to the back, but they've got a little gap in the front. You want to start with the front, push it right in there nice and tight up against the rear sight base, and then while you're pushing forward, just push down and sometimes even do a little bit of left or right rocking motion in the back, and it just clicks right in place. So that's how I lubricate my AK. I don't think that really over-lubing this gun is going to necessarily hurt anything, but I think at the same time, a lot of people like to slather a little bit too much oil. All that's going to do is just make it where, you get messy. You might, ruin your gun case or backseat of your car or whatever. So just figured I'd show you there's really only probably, 8 to 10 drops of oil required to lubricate this whole entire system. So anyways, yeah, this is how I do it. I've always had good luck in the past. Never had any lubrication problems on any of my AKs, to be honest. So anyways, hopefully this helps someone that's kind of newer into it. And for you seasoned veterans, let me know if you got another little thing that you like to do when you're lubricating your gun. Let me know if you guys like to use grease. I'll acknowledge that real quick. I've used grease in the past. Grease is okay, but I found with a lot of your polymer or lacquer coated ammo, those little pieces of lacquer, when it's ejecting the case from the chamber and extracting it, those little flecks get in there and they stick to the grease. And after a fairly short period of time, you've got a bunch of little grit with all the, even the sealant that's on the back of a lot of the primers, that sealant will end up in there. And just every little bit of grit and grime likes to grab onto that grease. So I'm not going to be adamantly opposed to you using grease, but it's definitely not what I use. And that's my reason why. It just seems like it becomes a debris field and it just attracts all of it and makes it into a big, like, gritty mess. So I think this is just Gunslick's brand oil. I got this as part of a Black Friday cleaning kit from last year, actually, and I just grabbed it. But you could use many of the commercially available oils. Motor oil also works great. Nothing wrong with that at all. Conventional or synthetic. I mean, oil is so cheap. Just use whatever oil you want, to be honest with you. But don't worry about using regular old motor oil. I use that many times, And I would use it right now, except for this just literally happened to be sitting here, and I didn't want to go into my back shop where I keep my motor oil. So, yeah, there you guys go. You go bolt hold open mag. All right, guys, take it easy, and thanks for watching.